the decades, many video game franchises have evolved and changed. The technology improves, expectations shift, and things become drastically different from where they began. And on today's video, we're looking back at the humble beginnings of Metal Gear.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Ever since 1998, Hideo Kojima has become a household name. He is one of the most prolific and well-respected game developers this industry has ever seen. And it's not hard to see why when you take a look at his body of work. Snatcher, Zone of the Enders, friggin' PT! But there wouldn't be a Death Stranding sequel to look forward to if not for his main project, Metal Gear. Following the exploits of a grizzled soldier named Solid Snake, gamers everywhere experienced an action franchise unlike any other. Hiding from enemies, watching 20-minute cutscenes, thinking outside the box both figuratively and literally as Kojima's insane fever dream grabbed us by the balls. Few games are packed with so much detail, with such weird, quirky problem solving, and characters that I still quote and think about to this day.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.
It's arguably the best franchise under Konami's umbrella, something I love oh so much. But like I said, no one knew who Kojima was until a certain game dropped on the original PlayStation. That would be Metal Gear Solid. Bringing cinematic flair unlike any other, the game was revolutionary and demanded our attention. Metal Gear becoming iconic overnight in the same way that Final Fantasy did with its 7th entry. Konami would of course capitalize on this success by making Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. For many people, the series started in the late 1990s. But of course, that's not actually the case. Metal Gear Solid is not the name of the franchise. Just as there is a Metal Gear Acid, a Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and a Metal Gear Survive, everything is just a continuation of a certain MSX game that released in 1987. The very original Metal Gear. Before we were questioning whether love could bloom on the battlefield, Metal Gear was just another 8-bit action game developed by an unknown 23-year-old. It's wild to think that Metal Gear is over 35 years old. How is this series older than I am? Oh god, I'm almost 35 myself! The flow of time is horrible! Either way, today, we're looking back on that first game to see how well it holds up and whether it was truly worthy of spawning all these sequels. Let's talk about 1987's Metal Gear. So right off the bat, I have to talk about what version I'm playing and why some of you probably never played this when it was new. Metal Gear was released on the MSX2, a computer gaming system that was really only popular in Japan. It did ship a little overseas, hence why the original has a European version, but even still, you'd be hard-pressed to know anyone who actually owned the system. Hence why the sequel, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, was released exclusively in Japan. There's a reason Metal Gear Solid came with a plot synopsis of the previous two adventures. Only one part of the world had actually played it. Which is not to say that North America didn't get Metal Gear. Oh no, we got it. It was just a much worse version on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So much was changed with this port. The opening is completely different, the checkpoints are super restrictive, guard placement is poorly thought out, and you'll be spotted for the stupidest reasons. And many of the bosses have been replaced with new ones, including the titular Metal Gear. Yeah, you don't even get to see the mecha monstrosity of which the series is named after. I'm not saying it's unplayable, but it's certainly a step down compared to the original. And because this is humble beginnings, I only want to focus on that initial release, which again, was not sent to North America. It would take a while before Konami completely relocalized and repackaged the game for us Americans, because in 2006, they released Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, an updated version of the original with new bonus features. Those bonus features being the original MSX games. And when the games were re-released yet again on 7th gen hardware, they shipped as a trio of games, MGS2, MGS3, and MGS Peace Walker. But what they didn't advertise is that the first two MSX games are still bonus features for Metal Gear Solid 3. And you don't have to unlock them or anything, they're playable right from the get-go. So, I'm playing this on Xbox 360. Without an emulator, this is the best version I've got, capped frame rate be damned. Hey. So anyway, what exactly is Metal Gear about? Well, it is the year 19XX, and deep in the jungles of Galsburg, South Africa, lies a military nation known as Outer Heaven. And these guys are bad news. Ever since arriving, these guys have taken over the land by forcing some of its inhabitants to build their compound. This spurned a resistance movement led by a man named Kyle Schneider, which so far has proven ineffective. Many of the resistors being captured, becoming prisoners of war. Also, their logo is a scary skull with a swastika on it. If that doesn't telegraph, we are pure evil, I don't know what does. Anyway, enter Foxhound, a special ops unit that was specifically designed to stop local revolutions, regional complications, and terrorist activities. It's headed by a commander known as Big Boss, which is such a video game-ass video game name. Oh, who do you answer to? Nobody special, just the Big Boss.
I hereby award you the title of Big Boss.
I'm amazed they never changed that. Then again, consider Kojima's most recent work with Death Stranding. There's a guy in that game called Die Hard Man. At least Big Boss was a name thought up in the 80s. He has no excuse today. But I digress. Interestingly, his portrait in the instruction manual depicts him with an eye patch, but it's on his left eye. In every other sequel, the guy is shown to have it on his right eye. But then again, maybe this artwork was reversed to account for how the characters are laid out in the instruction manual. Either way, when Foxhound notices that things in South Africa aren't going so hot, they send in their best agent to scope out the location and report back. A man named Gray Fox. And what he finds? Oh boy. Outer Heaven's ultimate weapon, a bipedal walking tank machine that can fire a nuclear missile from anywhere on the planet. A mecha monstrosity known as Metal Gear. But before Gray Fox can do anything about it, he's captured by the enemy. And so Big Boss only has one last resort, and it comes in the form of a rookie soldier named Solid Snake. Trained in close quarters combat by Big Boss himself, Snake's never been on a mission like this before and now has the huge responsibility of saving the world. And worst yet, he has to do it unarmed. The only way to sneak into Outer Heaven is to go in with no equipment. I know, it's very frustrating, Snake. Also, it's a stealth mission, why are you screaming? Snake's gotta make his way through the base, save Gray Fox, and dismantle the dangerous Metal Gear. And that's basically the plot. You gotta love the early interpretation of Solid Snake. Being a rookie, he doesn't have that grizzled persona he'd be known for afterwards. Although he is established as a smoker early on. In fact, the only item you have when the game begins is a pack of cigarettes. And equipping them actually damages your health. That's fucking brilliant. But still, he's just a guy in green fatigues, his bandana barely visible on his 8-bit sprite. And according to the box art, he is a dead ringer for Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese from The Terminator. Schwarzenegger may or may not be close by. But yeah, folks, this is Metal Gear. And if you know anything about this series, you know it was pretty different compared to other action games of the 80s. Whereas the Ikari Warriors or Contra was all about balls-to-the-wall mayhem, shooting every single enemy you saw, Metal Gear played by its own drum. Snake goes in without weapons, and trying to take on armed soldiers by himself is a big no-no. And while you can find a gun in less than 2 minutes, you still only have so much ammo, increasing the chances of you getting killed and having to redo big sections of gameplay. But I don't even mind, because the stealth is actually fun. With the top-down perspective, you can see everything that's happening, where the guards are walking, what objects you can hide behind, whether this is the right time to cross their pathway and reach the other side. And I gotta say, it is incredibly satisfying to navigate multiple rooms without getting caught. To go as far into the base as possible without setting off a single alarm. Because yeah, when the guards see you, this shit is on. The alert indicator is such a great audio cue and an iconic part of the series. Everyone has heard this noise at some point in their life. Still, it's not the end of the world if you do get caught. It's not an instant game over. You can choose between running away to try and lose them, or you can kill everyone that pursues you until nobody's left. He may not have any weapons, but Snake can still throw a punch, which is really effective at stunning enemies and keeping them where they are. I would always hug the corner of a crate or wall or something, wait for guards to walk in my general direction, and then just lay the beat down. The enemies aren't particularly smart. In fact, here's a fun thing about the punches. The guards don't react to them. Seriously, they get stunned, yes, but as soon as someone knocks them upside the head, they just keep doing their patrol like nothing's wrong. Oh god, my head! Oh Jesus! Damn, mosquitoes are getting stronger this year. Ugh. Although thanks to Metal Gear Solid 5, I have a new headcanon that the soldiers are just too used to getting punched for no good reason.
Morning, boss. Thanks for that, boss. Thanks for that, boss.
You may have also noticed from the footage that the guards probably should have spotted me in some of those situations. But in actuality, all of the enemies have tunnel vision. They can see directly in front of their eyes and nowhere else. You could be the only person inside the back of a truck, and unless you are directly in front of them, they don't notice you. No peripheral vision whatsoever. Amazing. Your character also has a weird detection box where everything above their torso just doesn't exist. Yes, my head could be directly in their line of sight, and even still, they can't see me. If I'm feeling bloodthirsty and I decide to punch out a guard who's in clear sight of another guy, well, there are no consequences whatsoever. They have no reservations about their buddy disappearing into thin air. It's a fascinating stealth system, but hey, this game came out in 1987. I'm willing to cut it a little slack. The stealth in Metal Gear is satisfying in a simplistic, arcadey way. Maneuvering around the guards is fast-paced, and there is a lot of foresight with the game's design. For example, at one point on the second floor of the first building, you enter one room from the north and find a line of containers separating you from a single guard. This prevents him from instantly seeing you, giving you a second to see how he's walking around. You keep going, you find the thermal goggles, and then you decide to return from whence you came. When you approach that same area from the south, the guard will now be located above the containers instead of his initial spot when we came from the north. That is very thoughtful. At no point in the original Metal Gear do I feel like you just immediately walk into a guard's line of sight because of unfair enemy placement. The way the walls and containers are laid out, you always have a buffer zone to collect your bearings and analyze the situation. Even when the game does throw you into an automatic detection, you can tell by the way the enemies are moving that this is a scripted segment. They don't pursue you like they would in other rooms, they shoot their bullets single file in a particular fashion. Controlled chaos. Contrast that with the NES version, a game that was slapped together in 3 months. Right off the bat, you enter a truck in order to obtain some binoculars, and as soon as you step outside, you're immediately in the sight of a guard who just automatically shoots you and drains your health. The new layout of Outer Heaven doesn't complement walking in from any direction because a guard could just immediately spot you, triggering an alert. Getting spotted so many times in this version, I really appreciated the thoughtful design of the MSX original. Not to say that it was absolutely perfect. Oh no. See, in Metal Gear, Snake can hold 2 things at a time, a weapon and an item. And items can be a wide variety of things. Body armor, a mine detector, and one of the most important of all, key cards. Outer Heaven is filled with locked doors, and the only way through them is to hold on to the appropriate key. Which takes us to the gas room. You're going through the base when all of a sudden, you start losing health to poisonous gas. Luckily, you can find a gas mask before coming here, which will save you when you equip it. It's also at this point that Big Boss rings you up on the radio and goes, I forgot to tell you, you need a gas mask for the gas room. No shit! You couldn't have warned me in the previous room, asshole? But anyway, you put on the gas mask, you run through the room, and then at the end, you find another locked door. But unfortunately, due to the way the game is designed, I can't bring out my card without taking off my mask. And so... I could potentially die just trying to exit. Fantastic. But then again, it's not that bad because I could find some military rations along the way. This game's equivalent to a med pack, an energy tank, a pick-me-up that can fully restore your health. And from the get-go, you're allowed to carry 3 at a time, which is really easy to do because for whatever reason, items respawn. You can enter a truck, grab the food, leave, and for no reason whatsoever, another meal has replaced the one you just took. Outer Heaven is on top of their resources, holy hell. This prevents the game from being ball-bustingly hard, as all you need to do is find a single source and max it out. I mean, there are only 2 places in the whole entire game that you can pick up landmines. If those were my only pickups ever, I wouldn't have nearly enough to take on the tank boss. You find rations fairly early, so yes, when you're in the gas room, you could always refill your health in the menu before proceeding to open the door. You'll still take damage, but I guess it's minor in the grand scheme of things. The advertising of this game was all about the items you collect. The infrared goggles, the flashlight, the cardboard box! Oh man, this item is so closely tied to Metal Gear's identity that Snake would debut in Smash Bros. By popping out of one. It's such a fun idea. You go under the box and guards will just think you're part of the scenery. A fun way to blend in with the background. Of course, you don't just want to lie in the middle of the hallway that they're walking in, because then they're going to move it out of the way, thus discovering your location. In the sequels, anyway. But in the OG Metal Gear, they don't seem to care. Yeah, they just walk on top of the box. You do take contact damage, but you never actually trigger the alert. The guards just all, well damn, that box was bumpy. Anyway, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. My favorite use of the box is tricking the surveillance cameras.
A surveillance camera?
See, in the original Metal Gear, they're a little tricky to navigate because you can't just walk underneath it like you can in all of the sequels. You'll have to slowly trail the cameras as they slide along the wall, looking for that break to jump to a new screen or hide behind a container. Until there is no container, at which point, the box is your best friend. This is Big Boss. Cardboard box? Are you moving house or something? Over. Isn't retroactive continuity fun? As if Big Boss doesn't know how useful they are.
I can't put it into words. I feel safe. Like this is where I was meant to be. Like I'd found the key to true happiness.
Uh-huh.
Does any of that make sense?
Not even a little.
You should come inside the box. Then you'll know what I mean.
Man, I don't want to know what you mean.
Big Boss is quite the commander. You can call him up every single time and he'll always spit wisdom. Parachute! Make sure you put it on before you jump off anything high. Oh shit, I need to write this down. I kid, but Big Boss definitely knows what he's talking about.
Snake!
Body armor? A real man wouldn't use any! Sound tactical advice, boss. Enemy uniform? What, like a girl's high school uniform? This is Snake. I feel so kawaii. But seriously, where the hell did that come from? I think it's an emasculinity joke? Like Outer Heaven is made up of nothing but girls? They're not as manly as my guys, who don't wear body armor, BT dubs! But yeah, this makes for a good segue towards the radio and the game's cryptic nature. Games from the 80s could be incredibly obtuse. I don't know how anyone is supposed to beat Castlevania 2 without a guide. Metal Gear definitely has its confusing spots, but I gotta say that on the whole, I think it holds up relatively well. And that all comes down to the fact that Snake has many people he can call whenever he's stuck. Alongside Big Boss, there's also Diane, Jennifer, and Schneider of the Outer Heaven Resistance. When I approach the second building in Outer Heaven's compound, Big Boss calls me to say that the only way to get in is to disguise myself as one of the enemies. But I don't have an enemy uniform. I could wander aimlessly for hours and hours trying to figure out where it is, or I could just call Schneider. He tells you straight up, the enemy uniform is in the basement. Saved me a world of trouble. At one point I grab a parachute so that I can drop into the inner courtyard from the roof, but as soon as you get up there, the winds are so strong that you're constantly getting blown back to the elevator. Big Boss tells me that I need a bomb blast suit, but he doesn't tell me where it is. That's what Schneider's for, narrowing down exactly where to look. Now the radio is very specific in the original because every single screen has their own conversations. Calling on the roof guarantees that Schneider will tell you how to get through. But calling him from the elevator room I just came out of? That does nothing. The radio is not tied to your progress, it is purely location-based. I could kill a boss and come back hours later, and I'll get the same conversation advising me how to defeat said boss. Schneider is an amazing help, as long as you call him from the right spot. And as long as you know his number. Yeah, Metal Gear never tells you his frequency. I called Big Boss in every room I could think of, and he never mentions it. I checked the instruction manual, and it's just a blank space that the player is supposed to fill in. See, the first time you see surveillance cameras, Big Boss calls you to warn you about them. Like the screen beeps and there's a call icon, and if you push the radio button, you just instantly get into a conversation. But I think it was supposed to be Schneider who calls you, because when you ring up 120.79, "This is Resistance Leader Schneider. I'll guide you around the base. Let's use frequency 120.79. Dude, I just did. The only reason we're talking is because I called you. So I think the incoming call was supposed to be from him, but something got messed up along the way. Unfortunately, it means that first-time players won't be aware of the most useful character, and thus will wander aimlessly trying to figure out where everything is. Oh, but don't worry, you'll still get Diane's number. Like, you find this POW who tells you that she can help, so the first thing I do is call the frequency. "This is Steve. Diane? If I know Diane, she's gone shopping and won't have come back yet." Okay then. So I make it to my first boss fight, the Shot Maker. "Alright, Diane, give me the goods." "This is Steve. Diane? If I know Diane, she'll be in the shower right now." "So? Get her out of there! I'm in a life or death situation here!" Maybe she can help me with the fire trooper." "This is Steve. Diane? Not you again! You better stay away from Diane!" "Oh, suck my dick, Steve. Even when she is at her radio, she gives me absolutely nothing. I get ambushed by 4 guys with guns, and it's just like, 'Hi, this is Diane. They have a suppressor. Bye.'" It's just not fair. And then we come to Jennifer, the source of my first roadblock. You're informed by one of the prisoners that she only responds to people with high class. And what he's talking about is the class ranking system that is present throughout the game. Outer Heaven is filled with prisoners, and every time you save one of them, you increase your rank. Eventually, you'll hear a fancy sound effect. And then you'll notice an extra star underneath your health bar. At that point, Snake's maximum HP gets bigger, and he can carry more ammo and items. By the end of the game, you can carry 12 rations at a time, guaranteeing that nothing can kill you. Well, aside from a pit trap, I fucking hate those things. But I digress. With the maximum rank of 4 stars, you can call Jennifer in about 2 different places. Again, the conversations are limited to locations, not progress. Many times I try to call Jennifer, only to get no answer. Eventually I find this one door that none of my keycards can open. And you find a lot of these things. By this point, I had 7 of them, and I had no reason to doubt that I'd find another. So I keep exploring, and I exhaust every possible avenue, until I come back to the door confused as hell. This is when you call Jennifer, who magically opens the door for you. Jeez. The door looks exactly the same as every other. Why didn't Big Boss just tell me to call someone for help? Ugh. At the end of the day, the radio still provides some direction, and a little help is still better than none. But I wouldn't begrudge anyone for playing this game while reading a guide. It kills the pace to call everyone on every single screen, but then again, how else are you going to find out what frequencies they've changed to for the second building? It's still a neat idea that I'm glad got fleshed out in the sequels. I've had so many playthroughs where I would constantly call everyone about everything, and it added hours of entertainment. Even in Metal Gear Rising. Besides, this game needs all the dialogue it can get. Metal Gear is known for its lengthy storylines, giant cutscenes, monologues about nuclear deterrence and digital information, dramatic backstories, and crazy conspiracies. Metal Gear 1, not so much. Big Boss tells you what you need to do, and then at no point do you have to call anyone except Jennifer. You can find Gray Fox in less than 15 minutes. Finding him is a little unorthodox because one of the prisoners says that the only way to get close to his cell is to get captured by the guards. Which doesn't exactly work on a gameplay level because all they do is kill you. Really, what they want you to do is keep traveling down that corridor until you reach a dead end where the guards surprise you. But now, you yourself are a prisoner of war. How are we gonna get out of this one? Are we gonna pretend we're bleeding out with a bottle of ketchup? Nah, all we gotta do is check the walls. Well, that was fucking easy. Not only do you punch a hole in your own cell, you also break through Gray Fox's too. What a badass Solid Snake is to just create his own exit with his fists. So that's who Cody Travers learned from. Either way, Gray Fox informs you that Metal Gear was designed by a scientist named Dr. Madnar, another prisoner who was forced to do Outer Heaven's dirty work. And then, he just leaves. Yeah? Gray Fox is a major character of this franchise. Anyone who's played Metal Gear Solid knows the name, but he only has one scene in the original. You free him and he's gone. He never comes back, not even to help you destroy Metal Gear. Gee, thanks a pant load, bro. But it's okay, because Snake is still more than capable of handling Outer Heaven's deadly traps. Like a metal cylinder that bounces back and forth. A long sandy road filled with poisonous scorpions. And then there's the electrified floors which you need a remote-controlled missile to shut down. Sound familiar? This is by far the best weapon in the game though, because it totally makes mincemeat out of practically every boss fight. It wouldn't be a Metal Gear game if the terrorists didn't have a crazy specialist group. Dead Cell, the Cobra Unit, the Beauty and Beasts, all of them are bullshit compared to Outer Heaven. We got the Shotmaker, a guy who fires a shotgun wildly. We've got the Machine Gun Kid, a guy who fires a machine gun wildly. We have the Fire Trooper, a guy who shoots his flamethrower wildly. Okay, maybe these guys are pretty lame. They don't have any deep backstory, they're just bosses who get in your way. And being a game from the 1980s, you might think they're incredibly challenging, but not really. The Shotmaker has no invincibility frame, so I can lay him to waste in no time at all. And that's just one way to do it, because I could have also hidden behind a container to shoot RC missiles at the guy. A strategy that is way too useful, because you can do the same thing to the Machine Gun Kid, and once again with the Fire Trooper. Although sometimes you'll come up to a boss that is only weak to one thing, like the Hind D.
Behind D? What's a Russian gunship doing here?
The Chopper is only weak to grenades, so you're gonna have to be in the right position while dodging gunfire in order to defeat it. Thing is, there is a safe space. You can stand in the top left corner and the bullets won't reach you. So I just shoot my grenades until it dies, completely bypassing any damage whatsoever. The bosses of Metal Gear are not that difficult. I can hold 12 rations at a time and I don't even need one. But still, your ranking can make two of the encounters especially tense. I haven't mentioned Dirty Duck yet, a guy who surrounds himself with 3 hostages and places a deadly pit trap in the center of the room. He's chucking boomerangs at you, and you gotta fight this guy without hurting the POWs. And I'm serious, you don't want to screw this up because the game has an incredibly punishing consequence for doing so. If at any point you decide to shoot one of the prisoners, your character will be automatically reduced in rank, dropping from 4 stars to 3. Why does this matter? Because you need to be a 4-star character in order to finish the game. The only way to defeat Metal Gear at the end is with C4 explosives, and it takes a whopping 16 demolitions to destroy the thing. And like I said before, your ammo capacity grows with each rank up. At rank 1, you can only hold 5 C4. At 2, 10 C4. At 3, you are limited to 15. You see where I'm going with this? Dirty Duck is fairly close to the end of the game. He's the last thing you're gonna fight before you reach Metal Gear. If you've already saved every prisoner you possibly could, then there's no way to get back to rank 4 after Dirty Duck. You are essentially locked out from the ending. And if you saved after that fight, well then, you gotta restart the whole entire game. Like I said, incredibly punishing. Seems like you could have saved us all a little hassle by putting extra C4 in Metal Gear's hangar. But hey. Snake learns how to destroy Metal Gear by talking to the captured scientist, Dr. Madnar. And somehow he managed to make it so that the machine only has one weakness at a time, and it has to be attacked in a very specific order. The sequence is RRLRLLRLLRLRLR. After that, I don't remember. Thanks? But finally, Snake now knows the location of Metal Gear and proceeds to head to the final building. It's at this point that Big Boss starts giving out strange advice. This is Big Boss! Get in the truck on the right! So I do that, and it starts to move, and it takes me all the way back near Building 1. Well, what was the point of that? Now I have to fight off the deadly scorpions all over again. Next time I ignore the message and head inside, only for Big Boss to say, "Enter the door on your left!" I do so, and what the fuck, Big Boss? You almost got me killed with a pit trap! Solid Snake, abort the mission! Return immediately! This is an order! Turn off the power on your Xbox 360 console at once! What the hell? He's not talking to Snake, he's talking to me! The first of many meta moments in the Metal Gear franchise. But yeah, things are awfully screwy, and eventually Schneider calls you up to tell you that he's learned something horrible. I know who the Outer Heaven boss is! No way! The Outer Heaven boss is... Oh no! And then he gets cut off, never to be heard from again. So Snake finds Metal Gear, and instead of fighting the mech itself, all you're really doing is laying C4 down while dodging laser turrets. Yeah, the machine never gets up, never tries to stomp you or anything. It just sits there while you deliver the boom. But Snake is successful. He destroys Metal Gear and triggers Outer Heaven's self-destruct sequence. It's then that we run into a familiar face. We run into Big Boss. I gave this mission to you, a rookie, thinking I could use you to fool the rest of the world. But you were too good! You went too far! Solid Snake, I'm not going down alone! I'm taking you with me! Big Boss, why? I trusted you! Interestingly, this guy is only weak to rockets, so I guess he does approve of body armor after all. That or Big Boss is so badass that he has diamond skin. While the self-destruct sequence is still active during this fight, Big Boss is still a pretty simple enemy who goes down in 4 hits. And then if you call Jennifer, she tells you that your cigarettes will actually buy you more time and slow down the clock. You hear that, kids? If you start smoking, you'll run a lot faster! But yeah, Snake has plenty of time to escape as Outer Heaven explodes in a gigantic mushroom cloud. It's then that Snake speaks for the first and only time. This is Solid Snake. Metal Gear has been destroyed. Operation Intrude N313 was a success. No big deal. Job done, that's all. No big deal. After that, the credits roll, but we still get one last message. Can you hear me? Solid Snake, I'm not dead. Someday, I'll get even with you. Someday, we will meet again. Now, how the hell did Big Boss survive taking 4 rockets to the face? And yes, I have beaten Metal Gear Solid 5, why do you ask? Regardless, that, ladies and gentlemen, was the very original Metal Gear. As much as this game was the beginning of Metal Gear's legacy, it's also the origin of Hideo Kojima's career. This was his proving ground, Konami throwing him a bone to see if he was capable of making something special. And lucky for him, Metal Gear sold fairly well. This allowed him some pull to make Snatcher in 1988, where he really started coming into his own as a writer and designer. Eventually, he'd decide to make a sequel with Metal Gear 2: Solid Snake. and you can already see his ambition starting to form not only in the gameplay, but also in the storytelling. The first boss you battle is a black ninja. Upon defeat, the ninja reveals himself to be Kyle Schneider from the first game, which is shocking because he was previously against Big Boss in the last adventure. I was almost killed, but not by them. By you and your country. Snake, after you destroyed MetalGear, NATO launched a massive bombing campaign against Outer Heaven. All of us resistance fighters, and the children of Outer Heaven. They didn't care about any of us. Think about it. The children of Outer Heaven were originally war orphans and refugees from all over the world! Like, you can already see just how much the caliber of writing has improved, right? Big Boss was no longer a mustache-twirling villain, but a complicated leader with actual motivations. Snake was no longer mute, and he was actively engaging with the characters, questioning whether he was even on the right side. It's just a better sequel by far, planting the seed for what Metal Gear Solid would ultimately become. And of course, the rest is history. I'm sure Kojima had no idea Metal Gear was going to become this mega franchise. When he made that first game, he was just getting his feet wet. He had something to prove as a designer to show the rest of the company that he could make some spectacular games. And separating it from the series' legacy? I think Metal Gear was a success. Yeah, it can be cryptic sometimes. No, it's not the best looking game visually, but the stealth gameplay combined with the wacky boss fights makes for a fun formula. I think most people will beat the game in about 3 or 4 hours on their first go, but repeat playthroughs are where the game really shines. When you know what areas to go to first and how important Jennifer is and to stock up on landmines before taking on the tank, the game flows rather well. I can clock in a run in under 90 minutes or so, and I still have fun the whole way through. Also, I didn't bring up the soundtrack yet, but that 8-bit chiptune is fantastic. I appreciate that it's not obnoxiously difficult. I appreciate that with the radio and prisoners, the game has a decent amount of direction. Snake gets to use so many weapons and so many fun tools, you're always looking forward to the next discovery. Putting on a cardboard box to deceive security cameras is such a novel idea for the time period, and I'm glad this helped create a franchise that I love. Metal Gear is such an amazing franchise. It's not always perfect, there are lots of things about the storytelling I don't always agree with, but goddamn if I don't love it all. Unfortunately, the series has been pretty stagnant and hasn't really done much lately, but you know, I kinda have faith things are going to change on that front pretty soon. Not only is Silent Hill getting a big resurgence with the Silent Hill 2 remake and Silent Hill F, but we got all these Castlevania collections and Contra collections and Bomberman's still a thing, and there might be a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake coming out soon, so you never know, you never know. Metal Gear may come back in a major way. Till then, I got a gigantic list of games that I can replay over and over again, and I can't wait to show my girlfriend Metal Gear Solid 1. Oh, that's gonna be so fun. Either way, folks, I had fun looking back on this, and hopefully you did too. Now you know Metal Gear's humble beginnings. And a big thank you to everyone for watching. My next video is going to be another humble beginnings, one I teased when I made my Patreon announcement video. And a reminder, I still have goals that haven't been met yet. And if less than 1,000 people signed up for that lowest tier, you can get more of the Hedgehog content that I used to do back in the day. But hey, do what you want. I am the Great Clement, and I appreciate the support. Till next time, toodles.